Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are. And welcome to FOA Live, where we discuss the latest topics brought to Jennifer and I in the family office group by members and the On the Rise wealth creators and communities. My name is Rush Olney, co-president of FOA, and I have the pleasure of being joined by Jennifer Catrulia.
Good afternoon, morning, evening, as Rush mentioned, and I have the pleasure of being co-president alongside Rush of Family Office Association. Appreciate everybody jumping in on the live stream with us, or for those of you who view it later, thanks very, very much for spending the time with us. We're going to jump in. We have some great guests today, and before we welcome them, just want to share some updates as we do each week. We know that obviously next week, Monday, is Labor Day for those in the U.S. And so we will be moving the FOA show to Tuesday, the 5th next week. And what we thought we'd do is, whereas we'll continue to have guests, one or two guests each week on the show, we know we've been getting so many questions about really path forward for FOA and the events that we have coming up, and for the pending retreat, more information about our speakers and our resource council and the new website that many of you've heard we're working on. And so with a number of things happening at FOA, and we really haven't taken time for Q&A and catch-ups, on next Tuesday's episode, we will actually do that with you. And so welcome having anybody hop on who just has general questions, wants to spend some time with us. And then the week after that, on the 11th, Rush and I actually will be on site at Water's Edge for the FOA retreat, and we'll be streaming from there.
Yes, as Jennifer mentioned, over the next few days, there will be a virtual onslaught of announcements. We are not spamming you. We're just filling out our calendar and trying to keep everybody up to date and up to speed. A few of those are the Greenwich polo events. There's also a VIP Fashion Week event that Jennifer will be attending. So if you have interest in that, it's very exclusive. So touch base with her sooner than later if you have any interest, or we'll be in New York. And as she'd said, the Water's Edge Resort retreat that will be coming up, where both of us will be attending. So
just a few other things. If you're in the Midwest, September 26th, we have the kickoff of our monthly thought leader events for the Midwest area. And so we'll be at Chicken and Pickle in Overland Park for speakers, networking, and then a couple of hours of pickleball play. And on the West Coast, September 6th, there's actually an event at Lamborghini Newport Beach. So for all of these, we'll also be really buttoning up our Austin and Vegas F1 events. So again, a lot of things happening. We're updating the calendars. A number of you will see that. And then the events should be pretty well set and shared for the balance of the year and into early next year. So any questions, please let us know, and we'll also share it out in the newsletter. I think at this point, we're ready to welcome our guests. And so I do notice, Rush, on your shirt, of course, the KC. So football season rivalry will begin, and always a fun time, I'm sure, for many of you as well. So feel free to chime in for your teams and your football season thoughts. And but with that, Rush, I know you'll kick off our guests.
Yeah, today we have the honor of being joined by two guests who in business and in their personal lives are forces to be reckoned with. If you attended the Kansas City Summit, you certainly would have ran into and probably will remember both of them. Katie is on Katie Fitzgerald, or Katie Dunn Fitzgerald, apologies, is on our FOA board of advisors, and she is also a principal at our Mariner Wealth Advisors. And we also have Garrett, Elmore, yes, thank you, brain fart, who was also at the summit and is the founding member and partner of Oak Bay Capital Partners.
And so we're excited to welcome both of our guests to the show.
Hello, guys.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining.
Rush, how could you forget my last name? I thought we were best friends.
Yeah. I was cramming, and just like when I did that in college, it worked out poorly for me. So
figure out where this is echoing somewhere. Might be things you figure out when you go live. We weren't echoing before, so what happened?
You good now?
Let's do a quick run.
We're gonna. So Garrett, I think we're down to you. Yeah, somewhere that we weren't echoing before, but we'll work through it quickly.
It might be Garrett.
Yes. So Katie, we'll figure out with Garrett where we're echoing from, but welcome and excited to kick off with both of you. We'll run through intros. First, just want to say thank you. I met you obviously several years ago, and I'm not sure exactly when you and Rush met, but you've always been so incredibly supportive, and especially since we had the chance to jump into Family Office Association, really appreciate everything you've done, and a privilege to have you on today. And I know you worked hard to get here, so thank you.
Thanks for having me.
So we'd love to learn a little bit about you, and then we'll kick over to Garrett.
Well, thanks for having me. Formal introduction, I'm Katie Dunn Fitzgerald. I am a principal and senior wealth consultant at Mariner Wealth Advisors, which is an independent registered investment advisory firm headquartered in Overland Park, Kansas, which is a suburb of Kansas City. And we manage over $100 billion in assets at our firm and work with a variety of multifamily offices. We are owned actually by a family office. So a lot of the strategies and things that we do at our firm are with the mindset of catering to family offices. That's my day job. But then I also am part of a family that owns one of the largest construction companies in the country, which is J.E. Dunn Construction Company. I serve on the Family Foundation Board at J.E. Dunn, as well as the Family Council Board, as well as I am a trustee on our family private trust company. So our family we are in the fourth generation. We will be a 100-year-old company next year. So we have lots of cousins and extended family now. So when you talk about shareholders, there's lots of family members. Plus we are 25% employee owned. So we have our employee shareholders as well as the family shareholders. So there's lots of unique complexities that come with that. But that's what I do on the side, as well as in my day job is working at Mariner Wealth Advisors.
The continued growth is amazing. So congratulations. Yes. And thank you again. Thank you again for being on today. And Garrett, just to protect your sound. So we'll mute out. You can introduce.
Am I echoing still?
You are. But so I'm sorry to anybody who's hearing me twice. But
it sounds maybe there's too much.
You can introduce yourself.
Yeah, if
there you go. Oh,
yeah. Oh. So it's still echoing.
Yes.
Katie, does Katie hear it too? Yeah, interesting. Give me 1 sec. I'll let you guys jump into Katie if I can figure out.
All right. So Katie, we'll definitely bring Garrett back in, and thank you very much. You never know what's going to actually happen on here. I'll kick off the first question because again, I would have otherwise sent it over to Rush, but this is what I do, so I can't help it. So given the current economic climate and everything happening, Katie, obviously you're got your hands full with your clients and everything happening. How are you navigating through this with them, and what would you consider like the top 3 suggestions you're giving people right now?
Honestly, this is a great time if you haven't gotten together with your advisor or if you haven't tweaked your financial plan. Now's a great time to relook at everything. We're focused obviously on interest rates and the fact that they keep going up and the affordability of the housing market. I was just reading an article from one of our chief strategists this morning, and it was basically just saying it is people, the problem with the market right now is that people aren't selling their homes. People don't want to sell because they don't want to sell their home to then jump into a higher mortgage. People are liking their 2 and 3% mortgages that they got several years ago. So they're just staying put. So when it comes to that, it does create a lot of people just staying where they're at. And then as far as the portfolio goes, we're actually, the market's up a little bit this year. So it's kind of funny. It might not feel like that, but we are just meeting with clients, figuring out what their income needs are, if it makes sense to borrow. We're actually trying to also pay down any outstanding debt that they have just with the rising rates. That's been a little bit of an issue for some of our clients. So we're at that point now where it may have made sense to borrow a few years back, might not make as much sense now. So we're helping them rebalance their balance sheet and pay off that debt that might be out there. So those are the conversations we're having with clients today.
Great. Thanks so much, Katie. And Rush?
Yeah, I'll I guess kind of jump over to a similar question on your family office side. So with the changing landscape, both globally and in the States, how is that affecting the family office, or what measures are you taking to kind of combat that?
As of right now, what we're focused mostly on is actually just if there's any estate tax planning that we can do this year and next before laws change here in the United States. If there's any gifting strategies. So we're going through all the different scenarios with our tax team of advisors and figuring out where there might be opportunities before those laws change. Finding those assets that still make sense to transfer to a spouse, kids, etc., and setting up special trusts and so forth. So that's it. Right now is an ideal planning time. And if you haven't started having those conversations, it's not too late. Start today. We still have another year or two to get all that done. So that's really what our family's focus has been.
So more, or I guess, housekeeping in the current environment, and just sort of getting everything lined out, and doing the fun stuff, as I like to say jokingly, of housekeeping and just making sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
Yes.
Great. And Katie, thank you. And Garrett, how do you think we are for sound? Good?
I think
Better?
good. I switched to headphones.
All right.
Better?
I think so. We're good. We're good.
All right.
Well, so Garrett,
Perfect.
Katie, I'm going to come back to you
on.
with some questions about your family office, and we'll continue on with you in a second. So thank you. And Garrett, in the meantime, maybe you'd give us an intro. I know that Rush is pretty intimidated about your mad pickleball skills, so that's why he tried to throw you off at the start of the show. But
I think that was it. I knew it was when I beat him in Kansas City that he had some beef. So I get it
now. So, but please tell us about you. You're in some really cool stuff. So.
Yeah. So thanks for having me on again. Glad we got the sound figured out. But yeah, my name is Garrett Elmore, managing partner at Oak Bay Capital Partners. So we're a really unique type of investment. We have a unique investment strategy, specifically investing right now currently into bourbon barrels, and basically any type of aged spirit. So essentially we're working capital for distilleries all across the world. So we focus here in the United States. We go down to the Caribbean, over to Europe, everything kind of all around that has to do anything with aged spirits. And so kind of been in this for a couple of years now, and kind of why I'm on here and how we're associated with family offices is we provide a really unique type of investment to this asset class that otherwise wouldn't be readily accessible to other folks. And so just, indirectly through our fund, right? And so that's kind of where we work with and just provide, unique access and sources to this type of investment. So.
Well, Garrett, thank you very much. And I know I've seen people interact with you, and they're very, very interested in what you're doing and the adventures you're having as well. So Sounds like
Yeah.
a lot of fun. And so, Rush, I know that you had some questions that we went over that you had for Garrett.
Yeah, just to kind of tee one up. So, can you just walk through kind of the economics and a brief walkthrough of the business model and barrel acquisition, and then you said you're working capital for them. So, what that deal or what that relationship looks like?
Yeah. So the process on this whole thing, and people think, oh, investing into spirits or bourbon, right? It sounds, kind of bizarre at first, right? You wonder how this can be scalable or how this is an investable asset, right? And totally valid, right? So the way we got involved into this, so there's basically these large manufacturers that make product for, call it 80% of all brands that are out on shelves. Okay. And essentially, because if you're a brand that's starting out, you don't have essentially the capital to go and start a distillery, make your own product, wait 5 to 6 years for your product to actually age, then put it on a shelf and then sell. Right? You essentially wouldn't make sales for 6 years. Then on the distillery side too, they're kind of in that same problem, right? They're making this product, they're putting it into barrels, and they're aging it. So we found that due to the aging life cycle, this whole thing is kind of where this almost gap, so you will, in this industry. And so that's where kind of we come in and say, hey, you have all of your capital tied up right now into all these heavy, intense assets. So why don't we free up your cash flow? So then you can increase your production. You can go on and not have negative cash flow for a certain amount of time, right? And we'll free that up for these brands and for these distilleries as well. And in return, we'll own the barrels, and then we'll kind of age them during the life cycle, and then figure out kind of a secondary market exit strategy as well.
So it's interesting because when you were talking about owning the barrels, it reminds me of when we rolled out a prohibition, and companies like Coca-Cola owned Coke, but then there were groups that owned the bottles, or there's other organizations or other groups that do that. They kind of own. There's the product, and then there's almost the delivery method or some portion in it. So it's super interesting.
Yeah. And so Garrett, will continue to hear more. And I know you've had some recent experiences on traveling to some of the different sites. And so hopefully we'll have to hear about what's going on and your adventures. I do want to kick back over to Katie for a second and ask Katie, when we were in Kansas City for the FOA Summit and you were speaking, you were sharing a bit about your family and really trying from a multi-generational standpoint to keep family members involved in the business going forward, and maybe where that had started to get a little bit more fragmented. Can you talk about the challenges with a multi-generational family about keeping everybody connected as far as the carrying forward the legacy of the family, and also, again, keeping everybody tied to the core business?
So my father and 4 of his brothers, they all worked in the family business. And growing up, I think that my cousins and I, a lot of us thought that was the path that we would go down and that we would work in the family business. But then also it was encouraged to us to go, explore what we really wanted to do. So I have cousins that are doctors, physical therapists, teachers, and so forth. And obviously I'm not in construction either, because we were kind of encouraged to go figure out what else is out there. And so we didn't do a very good job with, I'll call myself the 3rd generation, of encouraging us to get back into the family business. So as of today, I only have 2, my brother and one of my cousins work for the family company. Now there's a lot of us that could go back and work for the family company, but we've all found other career paths, and we're now, a little bit older. And so what we realized is we missed an opportunity when we were younger, which was in high school as well as college, and creating a internship opportunity for us as family members, as well as even now, since we are 25% employee owned, our senior level executives and letting their kids see what the business has to offer. Because I think that, when you're 15, 16, 17 years old and you're trying to figure out what you want to major in college, and back then a lot of kids we thought, well, if I don't want to go into construction, then I'm not going to go into the family business. Well, what we didn't realize is that there's close to 2,000 people that work at the family business. So there's all different things for us all to do, which include everything from, marketing to accounting to HR and so forth. So my sophomore and high school daughter, as well as a couple of my nieces and nephews, just completed this past summer a high school internship. And that high school internship is really just to get them some exposure to what are all the different things that a construction company goes through when pursuing a job, how they could go into business development, the estimating components, and so forth. And so letting them even tour job sites. And so that got them that initial exposure. She can take a deeper dive next summer and learn more. But these are just like short little 1 week, get them interested, see if it's something they want to do. Then once we go into college, there's another internship program that's more in depth. That's more like 2 months of your summer, really getting to take a deeper dive. And then ideally, if it's something that we enjoy, we would have an opportunity to come work for the family business. We've also encouraged family members to also go get experience outside of the family business, because we want them to have that, diversity and background of what is it like to go do something else. So we have put some structure in place. That's part of what the Family Council's done, is just put structure around that, because before there was no formal rules or guidelines. And so it was just very vague as to what their opportunities could be. So, we're 99 years old and we're still learning. So, it's never too late, but I do think putting a little bit of formality around that training program for the next generation has been super helpful for our family.
Well, thank you. And I think that's so key, because Rush and I are both meeting more and more families who say, my legacy family was in this, and then everything they're all doing really has nothing to do with what they were tied to. And there are a number of reasons, obviously, for that. But it's definitely from an education standpoint, I think, of value to.
And I'll follow on with Garrett a little off topic, but I'm sure you're hoping that Oak Bay Capital Partners becomes a legacy business, and you have all these issues about Passover and generational wealth to follow up on. So you'd mentioned the Caribbean, Europe, sort of going down the line. Obviously, with the U.S., you're going to be looking at sort of the rise in bourbons. The Caribbean, I'm assuming, aged rum, and then Europe, scotches and such. So how do you take a similar approach as far as evaluation of those opportunities abroad? Are those similar, or do certain spirits or distillers have different models that you run for an evaluation?
Yeah, totally. Good question. So what we do for our investment thesis, we focus heavily on what's called a GI, or a geographical indicator. So our investment is the same for anywhere that we go and invest in, right? So right now, we've invested heavily into Barbados rum. So we own about 3,000 barrels of rum that's currently aging down in Barbados. And reason being is, so if we're looking at Scotland, if we're looking at Barbados, Kentucky, or even here, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee right now. There are these things called geographical indicators, like I mentioned, to where you can only make a product and a spirit a very particular way, or else it's not going to be called whatever that is. So, right, Kentucky bourbon has to be made a certain way in Kentucky. Barbados rum, very specific, certain way that you can make it in Barbados, so on and so forth, right? And so, luckily, what we can do is kind of use one investment thesis for this and kind of expand this internationally, right? And it allows us to really diversify within our investments, and which in hand reduces and mitigates a lot of our risk. And it also allows us to go out and be an international investment group.
And do they, when you purchase barrels? Are they multi-use, or are they single? Are you sort of buying a cash stream that is, call it 5 years long, whenever it's produced and distributed and shelved and sold? Or do you own the barrel going forward as well for sort of the next run?
Yeah, totally. So we're vertically integrated all throughout this process. So rum actually uses bourbon barrels. So after the bourbon is complete, we'll ship those barrels down to Barbados, and we'll use them then for Barbados rum. Same thing with over in Europe, right? You can use malt whiskey. You can use once used bourbon barrels for that. Whiskey barrels, any type of once used American whiskey barrel, we can reuse that as well. So yeah, we're vertically integrated throughout this whole process, which is really good, cost efficient, and also increases a lot of our returns in the long run.
And is that transferable into the wine space as well? I know a lot of them have gone to the stainless, but still with any sort of oak on the reds or heavier wines.
Yeah, wine's a little, you can age it into, so you can get really creative with kind of like the private labeling sector. Like, if me and you, Rush, wanted to go and create a brand and we wanted to age our bourbon into once used wine barrels, right? That'd be really cool. But for our investment model and thesis, we want to focus on what's bulk and what everybody is buying and using all at the same time, right? So that's very specific and niche, and you can do, you can do what anything essentially, right? That involves wood, oak, and a spirit, right? But it's just focusing on, what is going to be transferable out to the secondary market as much as possible, right? So that's kind of what we focus on.
So Katie, with everything happening in the market and kind of and people considering a range of alternatives, kind of what Garrett's describing, and a number of other opportunities, really, that people, when they're uncertain about the market, are kind of looking at what's innovative and what's coming up for future opportunities. How do you work, whether it's as part of your family council or with your clients, to just navigate all of this going forward?
Honestly, it's case by case for each client. Everybody's unique and everybody's different. It's funny, especially at Mariner, since I see so many different client portfolios. No two clients' portfolios are the same. Everybody has their own risk tolerance. Everybody has their own liquidity needs. Everybody has different ideas of what they want to be in from a private equity standpoint. And so it really depends on the client. And so when it comes to our family, if we're going to tie up our money in something, it's got to be something that has, a 20 plus type IRR. And it has to be something that we have a committee that will vote. We have representatives from each family branch. So we have 5 family branches. Everybody will vote if it's something that we want to be in, and then we go from there. But any one of us can bring an opportunity to the table and say, this is what we think we should be invested in, and we evaluate it. So we're in everything from obviously Major League Baseballs to esports, to construction and real estate and everything else that goes with that.
So it would sound like then, if you had to pick an ideal type of person, everybody's got kind of their niche or differentiator within any space. So, and I'll ask Garrett you the same thing as Rush and I close up with you. Katie, who's the right person for you as far as a potential client?
Anybody who needs to just get their life in order and their financial plans and projections. Honestly, it's somebody who's our typical client is, at least a few $1 million invested with us, but it's sitting down and just going through the plan and making sure everything is titled correctly and working the right way for them.
And Garrett, and then Rush will close us out. For you, who's the right type of relationship for you? What if someone's thinking about reaching out to you, best fit?
Yeah, so we focus and work a lot to mitigate risk and also diversify portfolios for investors, right? I mean, real estate, very accessible. Investing into companies, tech, businesses, whatever it is, their opportunities are out there, and there's a lot of them, right? There's not a lot of opportunities of what we're doing. and we have a very stable investment that we can go and buy something tangible. It ages and appreciates in value over time. And then we have an exit strategy and return mark for these investors. So again, I guess the ideal person is somebody who is looking to diversify their investment portfolio, B, mitigate a lot of their risks, especially in unknown markets and territories right now. And then C, anyone who's looking for a cool and fun way to go hang out with your buddies and say, yeah, I own a bunch of bourbon barrels or rum barrels in Barbados. So, there's a lot of good that's happening with our group right now.
Great. Well, I would like to thank Katie and Garrett for taking the time to entertain at least Jennifer and I, and hopefully everybody else that is logged in. And thank you for your comments. Again, we would love to get to them and fold questions in, so please add those. We would like to have the time for that. We haven't gotten to them, so we will follow up with everybody that sent a comment, and look forward to seeing Garrett and Katie in the future, hopefully very soon for pickleball, and maybe I can get a win against Garrett this time. And yeah, just thank you for coming out. We look forward to seeing everybody next week. Tuesday, I believe, is that the reschedule? So
Tuesday the 5th. So we'll see everyone next Tuesday. I know you've been pinging our personal LinkedIns as well, and so we'll follow up with questions and introductions and connections to Garrett and to Katie, to those of you who had asked. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
cheers. Have a great week, all.